What's up, y'all? It's one of my favorite times of the year. Yes, it's officially fall theater season, and here's the show you got to check out. Steppenwolf presents Noises Off by Michael Frayn and directed by Tony Award-winning ensemble member Anna D. Shapiro. It's a co-production with the Geffen Playhouse, and this meta play within a play will have you LOLing, LMAOing, LMFAOing, and all night long. Extended by demand through November 3rd, Noises Off is on stage now. Buy tickets starting at just $20 at steppenwolf.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, Mayor Johnson makes changes to crisis response program, the Sky fired their head coach, and we are talking best of the South Side. Joining me to break it all down, producer Michelle Navarro. It's Tuesday, October 1st. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, Michelle. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Jacoby. How you feeling?
I ain't out here complaining. I know you was in New York recently. How was your trip?
It was good, but as I showed you in the morning meeting, I went to New York and all I came back with is a boot on my foot because I injured myself. But we're good. We're on the path to healing, so that's all that matters.
I can't imagine going to a place for a concert that gets canceled and I come back with a walking boot. I feel like that's like the most like a very Kobe story. Like I've traveled to places and the concert got canceled, but I came back pretty intact. So sorry to hear that. I wish you a speedy recovery.
Thank you. And thank you to the wheelchair pushers of Midway Airport. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
But let's start today's episode by looking back on an announcement from Mayor Brandon Johnson last week, where he let us all know that Chicago's Crisis Assistance Response and Engagement Program, most of us know those as the CARE teams, they are officially moving away from police and fire personnel. This is kind of a big deal. This is something that some progressive alders, advocates have wanted since the start of this pilot program back in 2021, where the city has had teams of mental health professionals, specially trained police and paramedics from the fire department respond to mental health related 911 calls. And it started in a few neighborhoods, I think around like 10. It has since expanded to about 22 neighborhoods. Michelle, can you talk about how the program is slated to move forward?
Yeah, so Johnson says that the CARE team will now be run exclusively by the Chicago Department of Public Health, and it will not include police officers or fire department personnel. CARE teams will now consist of a crisis clinician and an EMT, both employed by the health department. When the CARE team responds to an individual in crisis, they offer de-escalation, mental health assessment, referrals to community services, and transport to community-based destinations, as appropriate to said incident. So to break it down, if someone in Chicago, if someone is experiencing, let's say, a mental health crisis, usually, they would send a CPD officer maybe and other people with the CARE team. But now it seems like they're going to leave out that police officer, leave out the fire department, and bring in these more specialized team members to, be able to best support the person or the people who, may be experiencing that mental health crisis.
And at this point, I just thinking like the first 4 years, they've had a little over 1,500 incidents. The data that they've given us said that there have been 0 arrests. There have been less than 0.1% of situations in which the CARE team had to use force in any way. And they explain that they have a really good system in place that they are hoping gets more funding and expands, where when they show up, they're offering de-escalation. They're offering an assessment from trained professionals who can try to better make sense of what's taking place, because while they had specially trained officers on these teams, largely when you see police officers showing up to these situations, they are not well equipped to make any type of diagnosis. They're not necessarily trained in any de-escalation of trying, to do what's the appropriate protocol to check in to see if this person has a CARE team already, if this person is in the care of family or friends, if there's anyone who can help us in this situation. And so what you're seeing is that these teams can provide referrals to community services. They can transport people to the hospital, to community-based destinations, to the emergency room. But they don't just leave it there. They also follow up at 1, 7, and 30 days with the individuals they encounter. So they're not just dropping police and fire-related EMT willy-nilly. This is something that they have been planning to do in some cases since the very beginning. Michelle, can you remind us of some of the neighborhoods that are currently covered in this program?
Yeah, so the CARE program is currently active in Uptown, North Center, Lakeview, The Loop, the Near South Side, Archer Heights, West Elsdon, Garfield Ridge, Clearing, West Lawn, Chicago Lawn, Inglewood, Ashburn, Chatham, in some parts of Lincoln Square, along with Lincoln Park, the Near West Side, Douglas, Brighton Park, Gage Park, Greater Grand Crossing, Roseland, and Auburn Gresham, according to its website. So you do see that it really does expand. It kind of gets at a good amount of corners of the city. And I think something that, to reiterate to that point, a lot of these people that require of these services are usually, people who are unhoused. And so, like you mentioned, it's a different feeling from, thinking about someone who's already in a particular situation where they don't have a support system, where they don't have access to medical, let alone to possibly shelters that can house them. And so this is going to be a really big step for the way that we can ensure to, care for Chicagoans who are unhoused and, who may need that extra support from people who are trained. And something that you also mentioned, Jacoby, police and fire departments have various expertise, but, they don't always necessarily know all the community resources that may be available when someone is in crisis. And that's when the CARE team comes in. They're able to help people get to where they need to be, when it's specifically not a health emergency, where typically, you could take someone to the hospital, or if it's some kind of criminal activity. Also, all the calls will still be routed through 911. And so you're it's basically you're calling the same number, but just it's the help that is going to come is going to be more specific to the issue, and will hopefully, be able to streamline to get quicker service. And then also so the police officers and, firefighters, they can go off and prioritize calls where their expertise is more needed elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Two things to be watching going forward is one, while the police superintendent, the fire chief, and the director of the public health department all gave positive statements with no real pushback on the plan to move forward, the firefighters union is pushing back a little bit over the paramedic reassignments. I believe there were about 12 that worked with the CARE teams, and they say this is a matter of a contract. They feel like these roles should be given to the union paramedics, and they say they're better equipped than the public health department EMTs to respond to complex health emergencies. And then also, this is still a very young program, and while it covers 20 plus neighborhoods in the city, we know that it's less than a third of all of the community areas in the city. And putting money into this program, seeing this program expand is going to be difficult. And yet, I'm just interested to see the type of data that the city can gather, because right now, I think this is a really good sign to get to this point. I want this program to be protected and to grow moving forward.
But it's interesting that, the department believes that paramedics should continue to be part of this crisis team. When, I don't know if you remember, but earlier in the summer, we were hearing from a lot of paramedics that there was a lot of paramedic shortage, a lot of ambulance shortage, because they were pushing that overtime.
Yeah, it looks like the health department has already hired 10 crisis clinicians and 10 EMTs for the CARE program, according to the mayor's office. And again, that expansion we were talking about in 2021, the budget was $3.5 million. In the 2024 budget, $15.9 million for the CARE program. So it's steadily growing, and I'm I'm excited for the data that we get out of the program moving forward.
The Chicago Sky fired coach Teresa Witherspoon at the end of last week, who was hired only about 11 months ago. Jacoby, what are the Chicago Sky doing?
Michelle, I don't know. I have no idea, G. I have no idea what the hell is going on with the Chicago Sky. I mean, this year was really a mixed bag of up and downs across the team. On the one hand, at the end of the year, people really just look at the record to define what happened, and that record was not good. But if you really dive deeper, there were a lot of bright spots in this year. We had a breakout season from Kennedy Carter, who wasn't even in the league last year. Angel Reese, our first round draft pick, helped us draw bigger and bigger crowds. Couldn't stop grabbing double doubles every time she went out there. And so there was a lot of positive things coming out of this season in the thought that, like, all right, we're in a rebuild. Yes, we just won a championship 3 years ago, but all of those star players were gone. And so in some ways, we expected to be in this position. I would have loved to be in the playoffs. And I think, had Angel Reese not got injured, had some maybe big trades not gone down in the season, we might have been there. But I felt inspired by what I was seeing in terms of the relationship between Teaspoon and the players, the effort that was being given every single night on the court, and then some of the announcements throughout the season, like a further investment in facilities. Those type of things were really exciting me about the pathway forward. I really think this was a season of one step forward, maybe like 4 steps back with this announcement, because Reese seemed pissed off.
Oh yeah. I mean, just in general, I don't watch sports as much, but I am really well equipped to learn about the gossip or the drama behind it. So I am a big Angel Reese fan. And so when I saw her message, that's kind of how I first found out about it. And I mean, she clearly says she's heartbroken. She says how she felt so welcomed by her along with her other teammates. And, and basically saying like, she was the reason, Teaspoon was the reason why Reese was so, ready to come to Chicago. And so I think something that I've been hearing a lot of online is just the idea of like, what happens when you have a coach who really makes a connection with the players of an organization, and then those players who really love this coach gets the rug pulled out under them. It can cause a lot of distrust between the players and the organization. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see, how this kind of continues to roll out for the players, who are kind of just left wondering what's going to happen. And speaking on just kind of like the other point you said, like, especially about their amenities, I mean, a lot of people are saying it's hard to attract players when you lack these amenities. And then they were announced that it was going to happen in Bedford Park. I think people were still kind of a little even thrown off that it was going to be in Bedford Park, just because it's like, some people feel that the amenities aren't up to par with the city. We have so much space. We have so many, all our sports teams kind of are always kind of looking to have, great spaces. It's interesting to see that if people may feel like it's kind of like the sky is getting...
Always getting the short end of the stick. Let's be real.
Oh, there you go. Always getting the short end of the stick. And of course, with these new announcements, it's feeling like it still feels that way. And it's sad. It's sad because we were so excited. I mean, we were so excited about Angel Reese. But I remember even thinking remember when they like welcomed her, like her first like PR moment, and
they went into that facility and people was just like, is that the park district?
It was
Where's
janky. It looked...
What's going on?
And then also people were talking about the lack of like, I don't know if it was press or just people in general.
Just pomp and circumstance. It didn't seem like they had rolled out the red carpet for a person who they undoubtedly were putting, if not the future of the franchise, at least the current season's momentum on her shoulders. Like everything about ticket sales, everything about marketing was using the Reese's Pieces in some respect. And it feels like for a season that under-delivered on the court and has some slight bright spots, like the facilities announcement. I don't know. It's hard to ask people to go into the offseason and to come back motivated when they lack trust so early, right? This is a player you just drafted who hasn't even been here an entire year, and already the taste in their mouth is a losing season, no playoffs, and my coach, maybe the brightest spot of my season, is fired. And so I have to build this entirely new relationship. from the start, and everyone feels like they're back at square one. One more thing we got on the docket today, we got to show our friends over at Southside Weekly some love. Since 2013, the nonprofit newsroom has been producing their best of the Southside list. It's one of our absolute favorite lists you could find that groups different things from across the city of Chicago, from places you can go and rest and relax, places you can go get some good food, places you can go meet other great poets and artists and people doing good work in the city. And after taking a break last year, they have returned with their 2024 edition. It features great write-ups on spots across the South Side, as we have all come to be accustomed to from Southside Weekly. But they've also got 4 amazing tours from voices we have had on the podcast before, including our friend Ariane Nettles, Alma Campos, Evan Moore, and Carlos Ballesteros. If you ain't new to CityCast Chicago, then you have heard amazing episodes from all 4 of them. And they give these amazing tours of the city. Michelle, what were some of your favorite things on this year's list?
So I have to shout out, because they shouted out us, the best bilingual poetry workshop series to help get over writer's block, the Bryant Park Poets. I feel like I've definitely talked about this multiple times on the show, but when I moved back to Chicago, this was one of the first places that I really found community. It is a poetry bilingual workshop. We meet at the public library. We used to meet at the Bryant Park Library. Right now they're fixing space, so we've been meeting elsewhere. But it has been such a lovely experience to meet people. Paige, the facilitator and founder of the org, shout out to her. She's amazing. And something that I loved about her going into like creating Bryant Park Poets was that she really wanted to create this not pretentious space for people who just wanted to write and work on things. And it's been so lovely. And so getting a shout out from them was really cool, especially because we just published our first chapbook, our 1-year anniversary. And so it was really cool to have Southside Weekly at our event.
I think that name is a good example of the type of names they get, the best of names they getting off in the list, like best lazy Sunday afternoon, best place to go crate digging by the boulevard, best bookstore doubling as political home. But shout out to you and everybody a part of the group, Michelle. That was so dope.
Thank you. I think the other ones that I really enjoyed, I saw Legend Tasty House in Chinatown get shouted out, which was the best hand-rolled ice cream. Legend Tasty House, if you've never been, it's right on Wentworth. It's a cool late night spot where they sell boba. They sell, of course, rolled ice cream. And so I definitely recommend. What about you, Jacoby? What were some of your favorites?
A couple. One was Best Bike Crew, which is Black Joyride, which was founded by a friend, Shawnee Dez. And I've done a couple of their rides. I think I did a Juneteenth ride once, where basically they get a whole bunch of bikers. You meet up at a location and y'all just ride through the city together. I've done one where we were on Lakeshore Drive going all the way from the South Side towards Grant Park. I've done one where we just went through like Bronzeville, Kenwood, Hyde Park, I think down the South Shore and back. And so that was another good one. And then one from Evan Moore, he wrote about best place to buy cigars and eat fried chicken. And that's Nolo's Cigar Lounge and Harold's down in Jeffrey Manor off 99th and Torrance. And the co-owner of Nolo's Cigar is Lori Shelby Conley, who is actually my cousin.
Wow.
And so it was good to just be scrolling through and to see her featured like that. Some other ones that stood out to me, Best Hot Pot from Happy Lamb in Bridgeport. And that's because once I read this, we had literally just finished an interview coming out next week when we talk about some of the best places for carbs in the city, and Happy Lamb had come up. But yeah, I love Best of the South Side. I was featured as Best South Side Storyteller a couple of years ago. You know, they came to, you know, I gave them some nice pictures or whatever. It was cool or whatever.
All right.
But I love this list. They usually go through like each neighborhood and do like a list, but this year they just really just went across with no boundaries and really focused on these amazing storytellers who provided their own little footprint for this year's list. And so we will drop a link in our show notes. We'd love to hear what are some of your favorite things on the best of Southside. And also, I just want to give a shout out to the artists they work with, because every year the cover for this edition. It's so fire. I own probably the last 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 that I've kept preserved. But yeah, we'll drop a link in the show notes for everybody.
I'm on the lookout. I'm trying to pick up a hard copy.
Oh yeah. If people want to find out where they can pick up their own copy, we will drop a link to their distribution sites. But again, it's so much great things on the list. Best Mind Body Connection, the Frankie Knuckles House Music Celebration, Greater Grand Crossing, Best Comeback. Shout out to 7323 Chicago Cafe and the homies over there. They really got some great write-ups for across the city. So please dive into it whenever you can. I want to give a huge shout out to our producer, Michelle Navarro, for sitting down with me today.
Thanks, Jacoby.
And for the rest of y'all listening, please bookmark our website, chicago.citycast.fm. There you're going to find our latest articles. You can catch up on some old podcast episodes, subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago. Hey, and if you're feeling real good, become a member of CityCast Chicago, where you'll get ad-free listening, members-only updates. You know, you get to support your boy and the whole crew. And we send you a special events email directly to your inbox for the members only. For everybody else, you go to our events calendar at chicago.citycast.fm. Something you can only find on the podcast, some good news. This Thursday is the final night of Summer on the Arts Lawn in Washington Park. They're playing 3 films all about the lives of Lorraine Hansberry, Toni Morrison, and Gwendolyn Brooks. The first 30 people to show up are going to get a special gift. I got a link for you in the show notes. As always, we appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.